Managing Partner here at Camden Partners, and we're very pleased to present this webinar, Driving Revenue Growth Through Analytical Marketing. Before we start the webinar, I'd like to give you a little background on Camden Partners and how we got to know Michael Donner, who will be our presenter today. Camden Partners is focused on growth, meaning we invest in companies and partner with entrepreneurs to help them grow their businesses. Camden Partners was founded in 1995, so this July actually we're celebrating our 20th year anniversary. In that time, we've partnered with over 80 portfolio companies, so roughly 4 per year on average. I got to know Michael Donner in 2012 when he was the Chief Marketing Officer of Prolexic Technologies, a company I was on the board of as a director representing Camden, which we invested in that company in 2012. Prolexic is a cybersecurity services company and grew very quickly before it was acquired by Akamai Technologies in 2014. While at Prolexic, Michael was doing some highly innovative and also highly capital efficient things to drive revenue growth through analytical marketing. I was really impressed, as was the rest of the board. He's a marketing strategist with more than 20 years of experience with not only fast-growing startups like Prolexic, but also some of the nation's largest brands. He has particular expertise in driving revenue growth through analytical marketing, which is what he's going to talk about today. So I'm thrilled that we're able to have Michael share his expertise in this webinar format because it allows us to reach not only our portfolio companies, but also friends of Camden as well. We're hosting this webinar because it's one of the many ways we work with the entrepreneurs at our portfolio companies to help them grow their businesses. So you're in for a real treat with Michael Donner today, and before I hand it over to him, I just have a few housekeeping items. First one is this webinar will be recorded so that those who can't join can view it later on. After the webinar, we'll have some time for Q&A. The Q&A session won't be recorded, and Michael will let you know when the recording has started and when it's been turned off. And then after the presentation section, Maribel Yu, my colleague here at Camden, will moderate the Q&A session. If you have a question during Q&A, you type it in the chat section area, or you click the quote raise my hand icon, which is located on your taskbar. It's a little blue hand with a yellow upward arrow. And then Maribel will unmute your microphone and allow you to ask your question. And when your microphone's unmuted, you'll see a yellow conversation bubble in the top right corner of your screen, and at that point, it's your turn to ask the question. So hopefully that'll all work really well and smoothly. Lastly, everyone, please take a look at your audio selections in your webinar panel. For the best sound quality, we're sort of suggesting that you choose the telephone option when we get to the Q&A session, but we got a little time before that. All right. Now I'm very happy to introduce Michael Donner.
Great, thank you so much, Jason. So today we're going to talk about the marketing imperative. I'm going to illustrate it through 2 case studies of 2 startups, Conversica as well as Prolexic, and we're going to go through the infrastructure to build the program, how to deploy and launch the program, and then how to maintain it. My name again is Michael Donner, and what I'm going to show you today I've used at both multi-billion-dollar companies as well as startups that are less than $6 million in revenue. And believe it or not, the same marketing challenges are both at large and small companies, and the same solution that I'm going to show you today works in both environments. So what is the marketing imperative? Well, we all know the reasons why startups ignore marketing or put it on the back burner. But this is a very interesting ad that I use quite a bit with boards of directors to explain why they need to do marketing. This is actually an ad from McGraw-Hill, and it says, what are your prospects saying? I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know your company's product. I don't know what your company stands for. I don't know your company's customers. I don't know your company's record. I don't know your company's reputation. Now, what was it you were trying to sell me? So the value of good marketing strategy is very clear. It establishes you as a marketing leader, builds brand awareness, brings in qualified leads, builds a sustainable pipeline, and positions your company for growth. But what are we talking about when we say good marketing? Good marketing is about an integrated, long-term approach that builds momentum. Good marketing is not a single execution of a single trade show, a press release, maybe a mailer or an ad here or there. That's never going to work, and I'll show you why. Demand generation is what I'm really talking about today, and demand generation is building a rapport and a relationship with a prospect that's very intimate as well as builds trust. It's about nurturing a lead, not just generating names. And that's a real big differentiation is, in the old days, people used to, in marketing, throw leads, names over the wall to sales and say good luck. Well, we all know that never worked, and especially nowadays. So what we preach and what we really showcase and what we're going to go through today is demand generation that encompasses all of these different marketing tactics, all working simultaneously to build a relationship and a rapport with a prospect to develop the trust. So let me show you how we did this with two different startups. As Jason talked about, Prolexic was a cybersecurity firm. I was doing business through word of mouth. The phone when I first started wasn't ringing. The website consisted of a few pages, and we needed to get the word out to the marketplace about who we are, what we do, and the value that we created. Conversica was an established company that had some initial success in the automotive industry, and it was a company that focused in one sector and realized that the potential was unlimited if they were to enter into the enterprise space and really expand and explore their growth that way. So we had to really completely remake and relaunch the company. So here's what we did in the first 6 months. The first thing that we did at both companies was put in place a marketing group. And one of the biggest challenges that I have found throughout my career is a lot of startups make the mistake of bringing in a junior or an agency up front to try to execute and build the program. Typically that doesn't work. Or the CEO plays the marketing hat and tries to juggle it with all the other accountabilities that they have. What startups really need is an experienced senior person, one that can both, put together the strategy as well as the tactical execution. And that's really important that that first hire or that person that's going to lead the program can wear both those hats. And one of the things that we did at Prolexic is we made this investment, and it was a very difficult decision because, again, we had very scarce resources. We could have spent the money in a lot of different areas, in R&D, development, customer support, hiring, additional staff. But we made the investment up front, and you can see the program in the first 6 months, we spent a little over $400,000. We increased sales 45% and the pipeline 47%. And here's how we did it. We put in a lot of infrastructure, and I'll go through what we did step by step. But what's really exciting about it is during the second 6 months, business started to explode. And that's what I was saying at the beginning is marketing is really a long-term investment. And the longer that you take to put the infrastructure and start building the program, the longer it's going to take to see the return. And the return will come, and typically the timeline for us is about 3 to 4 months to put this infrastructure in place, really robust, to build all the content and then start the program. And after the first 6 months, you really see explosive growth. And what I'm going to show you also is that every dollar that you invest in marketing should be tracked. Anybody that tells you that they can't track an ROI on marketing doesn't know what they're talking about or is not building the program correctly. You've got to be able to track your ROI, and I'll be able to show you how to do that so that you can see every investment that you're making, what's working, what's not working, what you need to change before you dump too much money into one medium and then get stuck. With Conversica, as I was saying, it's an artificial intelligence tool that follows up on leads. We had to reinvent ourselves because we were only in the automotive sector. So we put together a very aggressive relaunch in 2 months for under $100,000, where we put together an entirely new value proposition, a brand new name. We moved to a .com domain. We redefined the value proposition, put together messages, a tagline, collateral, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we start all this? What's the first thing that you need to do? It all starts with messaging. It's critical to focus on the value you provide, not the technology. And that's a real big key there, is a lot of people talk about just the technology that they provide, but they don't talk about the value that they create. And the second most important thing is the content in the programs. If you don't have the content, there's no sense in starting to do demand generation. To do effective demand generation in today's complex marketplace, no matter what industry sector, no matter what size company, you've got to have meaningful content. And many times the content is right at your fingertips, but you're not sure. So to give you an example, at Prolexic, when I started, there was no content. We had 2 pages of a website. So I really struggled to try to figure out, okay, how am I going to build this content? Because I don't have a department, I don't have a lot of resources, I don't have writers, etc. I need to figure out how to do this myself in-house very quickly, very efficiently, and be very compelling. And Prolexic is a cybersecurity firm, so we were fighting cyber attacks every day for banks and retailers, etc. And I started to think about, well, this would be kind of cool if I started to report on the different types of attacks that we were doing in a very simplistic way. I could actually build content and data with something that didn't even exist. So again, I looked around at the resources that we currently have, and we already had all this data. I just took the data, packaged it, presented it, and put it in a format that nobody had actually done before, and started to build my content. The next thing I had to do was build an infrastructure. Again, I don't want to be running campaigns and spending money on marketing if I can't track what's working, or otherwise I'm making this huge investment that might not pay off. So I had to put in some tools, and I'll show you those tools and how to build it most efficiently and effectively. And then also I had to establish a process. I mean, once we start generating leads, what happens? Do we throw them over the wall to the field sales folks? Is that going to be effective? What does field sales actually think is a qualified lead? What's the ideal situation? So really developing and mapping out all those processes. And again, I'll show you how to do that. So let's, again, give an example. So Conversica, before it was called Conversica, was named Ava when I first started, Automated Virtual Assistants. So again, very technical, didn't really make sense in the enterprise. People didn't understand what the company does. So the first thing we did was to uncover the hidden value, the strategy and operational assessment, which was, let's come up with a new name, a new branding, new positioning, new messaging that actually makes sense in the enterprise and that can break through the clutter. Conversica, converting leads into opportunities, the fastest, easiest way to convert leads into opportunities. Very simple, tells you what we do. The name of the company, Convert Conversations, tells the story. The second thing was the demand generation and the communications, the building the infrastructure, the thought leadership. The third thing, again, the sales, marketing, operations. We'll go through all of that. And so here it is phase 1 is all about building the content, the collateral, the branding, the messaging, getting the website up with integration in with a CRM tool such as Salesforce. The second step is then building out the programs, the campaigns. And the third step is, after you have all this launched and running, that's the time that you launch to media and analysts, once you have a track record, once you have some case studies, once you've got momentum moving. So the demand generation engine needs to be connected by core messaging and a CRM. And that's really important, is that in doing effective demand generation, you've got to have all your guns firing simultaneously. You can't just do branding. You can't just do 2 trade shows. You can't just do a press release every 3 weeks to 4 weeks and think that that's going to be effective. If you're really going to make an impact, you've got to have all the programs running simultaneously and consistently with core messaging. And I'll show you some examples of how to do that as well. So here's the infrastructure that we built. So we've got all these demand generation programs going. We're probably going to an event. We're doing some PR, social media. We're doing some direct response. We're doing pay-per-click. And when the leads come in from the target audience, we set up a call center, an infrastructure that's very, very inexpensive, and I can make some recommendations offline if you have any questions on that, to where a lead will come in from the website, and we had a 5-minute SLA with the call center 24/7. It was a call center that was in the United States, headquartered in Maine, Balance CXI, and their job was to respond to the lead immediately. Because when somebody actually responds to your webinar or downloads something or registers for it, you've got their attention and you've got a finite time that they're going to be paying attention to it. And statistics show that if you can reach out to that prospect within 30 minutes of them downloading it, you have a 50% chance of converting that prospect into an engaging conversation with your company. After 30 minutes, the odds start deteriorating. So it's really critical that no matter what time of day the person is downloading or reacting to something, that you can respond to them. And most business professionals are actually looking at stuff outside of normal business hours. So you can't expect that you're going to be able to capture all your leads from 9 to 6 every day. What we found is people started looking at stuff at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we had the infrastructure 24/7, again, because we need to be global, to respond within 5 minutes. So the call center then responds to the lead, does further lead qualification to it, identifies additional information, asks a couple qualifying questions. If the prospect meets the criteria, they have the ability to go into the inside sales team's calendars to actually schedule a live demo either for the following day, or they can do a live transfer if it's during normal business hours and there's an inside sales rep available, and they can then do the lead transition. And I'll go through all of this in a little bit more detail, but that's kind of the high level. So where do we start with building the infrastructure? What are we going to need? Well, we need a content management system. We need a customer relationship management system, a CRM. We also need a marketing automation tool. We need some press and social media monitoring and some website tracking and analytics. So at Conversica, we used WordPress, a content management system that allows you to create, store, and deploy your website easily without having to hand code and update each page. Your marketing team has got to be efficient on updating your website. It's got to be, constantly updated and in a very quick, easy, and non-technical way. The CRM system, we use Salesforce.com. Highly recommend it. A CRM system helps you manage, analyze, and report on your interactions with customers and prospects at leads. You can track what lead sources are working and where the leads are coming from, and then you can track everything back to build a very, very accurate and very true ROI. For marketing automation, you can use tools like Pardot or Marketo. I like Pardot a lot because it's owned by Salesforce and seamlessly integrated with Salesforce, and it's very user-friendly. You don't need a full-time administrator as you might need with a Marketo implementation. Marketo is better if you're a larger organization and you need scalability, but for most startups, Pardot works great because you don't need the infrastructure or the dedicated resource to manage it. And marketing automation tools combine workflow and campaign automation and tracking and analysis. They help with lead scoring. You can build customized landing pages with a click of a mouse, and it also can help manage your social media. And then for press and social media, because we had very limited budgets and we never actually used PR agencies in any of these examples, only until we were extraordinarily large companies doing very complex PR launches in multiple countries would we bring in a PR agency partner. Because what I'm going to show you is how you can do your PR in-house and be so much more effective and efficient than working with a PR agency, is to put in tools like Vocus or Meltwater. These are amazing SaaS tools that, for a nominal fee each month, you get a tremendous package from them. One is a press release database where you can actually build your press database. You can build it through keywords. You can build it by the names of your competitors, finding out who's writing and doing coverage on your competitors, what keywords are being written about, and then you can build your database. What's up on the screen here is a daily alert that both programs offer as standard functionality. And I have them programmed for industry keywords and competitors. So every day I would get this email that would give me the articles that were written around the world on my competitors or the keywords. So I would see, number one, what publications are really focused on my target audience. Number two, where's my competition getting coverage and what are they saying? What are they doing? So how can I react and outsmart them? And three, also giving me competitive intel. So I had this set up and we actually had all the salespeople received this as well because it helped them, be better educated on the industry, better educated on the competition, and better educated on what their prospects are also reading as well. And then it also has a tool and infrastructure in Meltwater and Vocus to actually issue press releases on wire services so that you get your press release out as well. So it's all very easy to use, very simple and user-friendly tools that help you do PR very effectively in-house. And you'll see at Prolexic, we had thousands and thousands of articles written every 6 months and never used a PR agency. It can be done, and it can be very efficient. And then we also have to put in website tracking and analytics. We need to understand, who was visiting our website, when were they visiting, what was the correlation to it? Do we see a lot of traffic when we issued a press release? Where were they focused on our website? What was our bounce rate? So that we can improve our SEO and SEM much more efficiently. But the main gist of all of this is content. And in this matrix, it's how I approached each campaign that we did. The first thing I had to do is set goals. Who do we want to reach? What was the customer profile that would be most receptive? What was the value proposition? What was unique and why? What was the key messaging? Who was the audience, and where was I going to get the list to send this campaign to? What was the call to action? What was I going to give prospects to engage them? And that's called permission-based marketing. It's I give you something and you give me something in return. I give you valuable content, information. I give you a white paper, a technical brief, a article, something that you can't readily get or receive from the internet, something that has value in. And in return for that, you register to download that call to action, and that starts to build the trust, and that's called permission-based marketing. Then one of the things that a lot of marketers mess up on as well is the creative execution. You've got all this great goal set up, you got the value proposition, you got the key messaging, you got the call to action, but the creative doesn't work. Or if you're trying to sell to engineers and you make it all marketing frilly and fluffy with all different colors, it's going to completely not appeal to them as because they're not going to take it as legitimate. So you've got to really understand the audience that you're marketing to and what's going to work from a creative perspective to them. And also, do some focus groups with, a couple good customers, show them an initial campaign or two and ask them what their reaction is. You'd be surprised how many of them are willing to help and give some great suggestions. And then you've got the follow-up campaign. Again, once the leads start coming in, what are we going to do? And then you've got to assess the success of the program and constantly reinvent. So a typical campaign components, has the call to action, the white paper, the case study, the infographic, again, something of value that they can't readily receive on the internet. Probably going to do some kind of press release on whatever the content is. Homepage banner, something very prominent up front. You're going to need a landing page and registration. You're going to need an easy to remember URL. You're going to want to definitely do social media on it. You're going to want to do some mailers, maybe some pay-per-click ads on it. You're going to want to prepare your inside sales team or whoever's going to be following up with a script, or the call center with a script if applicable. Again, if you have a phone system in the, that people would be calling into, you might want to update the on-hold recording. You want to integrate the campaign with Pardot, Salesforce, Google Analytics, and watch for clips on Meltwater, as well as internal announcement. The worst thing to do is launch a campaign and not have all your employees know that the campaign is going on, because if they get called or asked a question and caught off guard, it doesn't look good. So let's walk through an actual campaign. This was a campaign, and I picked this one because it can have a lot of legs in different examples. We were going to a big trade show, the Salesforce annual Dreamforce user conference, and that was a really important audience because our technology at Conversica was integrated with Salesforce, and we found that our target audience were Salesforce users. So what was my objective for the campaign? Was to get people to the booth, schedule demos, and sign up for a trial offer. Who was my audience? I was trying to be as specific as possible, people that were going to Dreamforce, Salesforce.com users. What channels did I use for the campaign? PR, banner ads, mailers, social media, special events. What was the messaging? Get better results in Q4 and let Conversica find hot leads for you. Because again, we were helping companies qualify leads to find the ones that were ready to buy faster using artificial intelligence. And then we were also had a 66% off trial offer. Get people to start using the tool for 3 months, and then once they start to see how we can work their leads with artificial intelligence, they would then convert. That was the strategy. So how do we start to launch this? So the launch was several weeks before the big trade show, and it launched with mailers to 55,000 people. These were customers, prospects, partners, current opportunities. We did, again, the name change and the complete rebranding. So we did some press releases, social media, set up all new social media sites, new website, new on hold, all the stuff that we talked about. But we didn't stop there. And that's what's really important here, is that while we had 6 weeks before the campaign, 3 weeks before the campaign, we wanted to issue multiple campaign impressions to people with multiple, that same list. We wanted those same people to see this name Conversica several times before the trade show. So when they're walking through the trade show floor, Conversica, that's the company that I got that cool infographic from, or that's the company that I saw that great white paper from, and they might actually stop at the booth. And that's the goal, is to put some value-added content in front of them repetitively. So each week we had a strategic campaign that reinforced again that we were at the show, that they could stop by and see a demo. But in the meantime, we were giving them, case studies, white papers, and mailers, etc. So they were starting to see our name, starting to become more familiar with it, so that when they see it in person. The other thing that we did that was very aggressive was actually co-marketed, joint marketed with Salesforce, because Salesforce was our core audience. So again, we had very limited resources, so we had to use our budget most efficiently. And who's better to give advice and authority, credibility to a company than Salesforce, with one of their partners, and they could help us with laser targeting. So we did a lot of different programs with Salesforce, and this is where we spent all of our money basically in these types of programs. We got banners on their AppExchange homepage. We got into their newsletters. We had them actually put out Twitter posts, for us, and do direct mail to their install base for us. We also, hit their Salesforce, because I learned that their Salesforce actually recommended partners and their app portfolio. They actually were compensated for it. So we did, for a twofold approach, is marketed both to Salesforce account executives who were out there selling Salesforce, as well as to Salesforce customers. And then we also targeted the user groups of Salesforce. Again, just trying to be very creative. Salesforce user groups are looking for some funding to, have their next event, their next party, their next, lunch meeting. So again, these are the power users of Salesforce that know the product inside out, that also make recommendations and are on all the chats, the message boards. So we went to them as well with our value proposition, and then brought it all together at the trade show. And at the trade show, we did a very small booth. Again, we didn't have the large budgets, but one of the things that we did is we had all this stuff building up to it, which was creating buzz and excitement. And then we also did what was called a bag insert. That was one of the kind of a guerrilla attack, more effective sponsorship, but one that's really kind of compelling. And it's actually a mouse pad. And it was an item that was very thin, lightweight, but yet something that people actually would keep, and that was somewhat unique. So again, tried in thinking out of the box, expanding the budget, and then building, from it. And all through the process, building out the identity, the image, making sure that the messaging is consistent on everything, and that the look and feel is also consistent. But the most important element of all this was the content. We had the white papers, developed the case studies, the collateral. We spent those 2 months when we were doing the relaunch rapidly writing, rapidly putting all this together, because without the content and for the mailers and all the supporting materials that you see on this page, we would have never been able to launch the campaign, because no one would have been interested in registering. Nobody would have had any information to talk to them about us. And we did the 2 videos, case studies, etc. I can't stress enough, content is key. We also did some newsletter ads and some banner ads and videos. And everything that we did on social media. Absolutely critical. And the beauty of social media, and the biggest mistake that most marketers make and everybody overlooks in social media, is you can actually build a robust pipeline from social media. At Prolexic, we built a multi-million-dollar pipeline from Twitter posts, which are 140 characters. Everybody would look at me and say I was crazy. You can't build a pipeline from Twitter. Well, you actually can. If you've got and you do enough research and you figure out the right hashtags and you figure out, with each Twitter post, you put a call to action, a bit.ly that goes to a dedicated landing page, so whether it's a white paper, whether it's a case study, you figure out what you can offer, and every Twitter post has to have a call to action that goes to a landing page. And you'd be surprised, if you spend enough time and you figure out the right hashtags, you'll be able to reach prospects that you haven't reached in any other medium that turn out to be legitimate. And also you can build pipeline from that. And that works on all the platforms, not just Twitter. What we always recommend is Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus, and Twitter as the bare minimum for your social media program, as well as YouTube for your videos. And all of that makes a really big impact on your search engine optimization. And again, in search engine optimization, a lot of people make the mistake of, I'm just going to do pay-per-click ads, I'm not going to do organic search. Well, you need to do both, and both are interrelated, and both help out each other to ensure that you get better rankings. I mean, one of the things that is so critical that in organic search is that you find the right keywords that make sense for your business, and that you focus and you do tremendous amount of optimization of your web pages and inbound linking to those keywords, as well as ensure that the pay-per-click, if you are doing it, and it's something that we didn't do right away at Prolexic, it was part of phase 2 because we wanted to get everything else in place before we started to spend the money on it, which is the safer way to go. But once we started doing it, it made a huge impact. We had our keywords consistently, we had about 35 plus keywords that were really critical to us, and we consistently came out on page 1 of organic search for them, combined with a very aggressive pay-per-click program. We had 12 for pay-per-click. We had 12 different campaigns aligned to different region. You can't do one size fits all. It's never going to work. You're going to need to experiment with pay-per-click, and you're going to have to be really careful with pay-per-click because you can dump a ton of money in one day if you set it up wrong. So you got to start in small baby steps with it. Really figure out what's working. Test different types of ads. Test different types of landing pages. And also, if you're global, highly recommend different campaigns aligned to regions and geographies that make more sense in each region. And press. We had to build awareness. It was one of the most challenging things to do because, as everyone knows, reporters are scarce today, especially if you're in a very focused, targeted sector and industry, and you've got to figure out, through your meltwater clips or Vocus clips every day, which of those reporters are writing on your industry, your kind of product, your kind of service space, and then really focus on them, and no fluff PR. Reporters really get annoyed if you send them fluff. So what we did is we only did press releases on content. So we wrote a new white paper. We would do a press release on the white paper and an abstract from it. The attack reports at Prolexic were huge media events. And we created media events from them by doing something that's called an embargo. And reporters really respect this. This is a really interesting tactic that now that we're talking about, you'll start to notice in the newspapers. Have you ever noticed a large corporation does an announcement, and that same day that article is in the USA Today, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, it's probably online in dozens of publications, and you're probably now going to wonder, well, how did they get everybody to write about it on the same day? Well, the way they did that was through an embargo, which means that they give the press release under a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement to established reporters, sometimes up to a week before the press release goes on the wire. And the agreement is, hello reporter, I'm going to give you this and trust you with this news several days before it's public, but you can't write about it, you can't release it, and you can't disclose it until this date, this time. And that's a really effective tool, because what reporters do is it gives them time to actually write the article, gives them time to do the interviews, to do the background, so that when it comes out on Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, they're going to have their articles already written, already approved, already edited from their editors, and already placed in the publications and scheduled in the newsletters. And that's a great way to get press out in multiple mediums, because as you also know in PR, once somebody does an article, nobody else is going to want to do an article, because they're going to look like a copycat, or they're going to look like they're late to the game. So with publications, you've got to be really careful, is that you don't want one publication to scoop your news, because it might mean that several other publications might not cover it, or they're only going to do a small little coverage of it because it's already been covered in the mainstream press. And as you can see, this strategy works with all different types of publications all over the world. And it's all about building that rapport and that relationship with reporters and being responsive to them. And once you've started to build that momentum, it's really critical to start to outreach with the analyst. And it's another big mistake a lot of marketers make, thinking, oh, I'm going to have to dump $50,000 to $100,000 in analyst sponsorships to get endorsements. That's not the case at all. There's a lot of ways that you can work with analysts without even spending a dime. At Prolexic, we never even spent a dime. And one of the things with analysts that a lot of people don't know is that you get one complimentary briefing either every 12 months or every 6 months, depending on the firm. So again, you want to do research through Meltwater or Vocus tools to figure out what are the analysts that are really covering your space. Who's writing about it on a regular basis, either research briefs or who's being quoted in the press from the analyst regularly. Those are the ones you want to target. And then you want to set up what's called an introductory briefing with them, where you can basically get usually about 30 to 45 minutes with an analyst, where you do a pitch to the analyst. You basically do a slide deck through a webinar, or if you're lucky enough to secure a face-to-face briefing with them somewhere. But you want to be really careful in that briefing. You want to utilize your time most effectively to explain to them who you are, what you do, why you're different, and showcase to them that you've got momentum. Because if you've got momentum, then they'll start paying attention and they'll be more interested in you. And then there's also other programs you can do with them that are, like one-off webinars or one-off white papers with some analysts that can also be really good investments if you can negotiate and leverage those the most effectively. So let's kind of like tie it all together. So we do this Twitter tweet. Again, you can see the call to action is the bit.ly. From there, they click on the bit.ly, they go to the landing page. The landing page you created in Pardot, which is a different landing page than the one for Facebook. They look the same, but they're coded differently, because I want to see, did someone respond to my Facebook post, or did they respond to my Twitter tweet, or did they respond to the mailer or the ad? So each landing page actually looks the same, but it's just a different URL that you use so that you can then track that success. So they fill out a form on the landing page to get this white paper, and then it is assigned immediately, sent to Pardot, and assigned to the call center for follow-up. So then the call center makes 3 attempts in 30 minutes. So they'll try to call the prospect within the first 30 minutes 3 times. They won't leave 3 messages. They'll just try 3 times. If they don't succeed within that first 30 minutes of reaching someone live, then we will start a follow-up campaign. Actually, we use the technology Conversica at both Prolexic and Conversica's own tool to follow up with the lead through email to ensure no lead was ever left behind. But we mapped out every stage of the process. We mapped out, what's going to happen if they respond. What if they don't respond? How are we going to incubate it and move it through the pipeline? We also, built the process flow of, how is the handoff to sales? What's the next campaign from marketing if they don't respond, etc. And then we had all the tracking in place. We could tell, how many leads were coming in, how many were active, how many pending opportunities from those leads, how many were lost opportunities, how many were won opportunities. we looked through all the different tracking so we could really tell, advertising in this medium really works, or, direct response using this list doesn't pull any leads, so we're not going to do that again. And there's, tons of examples and case studies that show this. This was a retailer at Prolexic that had entered in Google natural search terms DDoS attacks. The prospect came to our landing page, bookmarked the site, but never registered it. And through retargeting, we were able to see, who that was, through Pardot. The daily visitor report showed us that this person came to our website. Then the next day, they filled out, they had an emergency cyber attack. They filled out our form at 2:40 a.m. in the morning. The call center reacted immediately within the 5 minutes. They got in touch immediately with a salesperson in a different region who is available and live during, their business hours, and we won the opportunity in 24 hours. So again, to sum up, it's all about phase one, content and automation, building that content, building those materials and that infrastructure. Phase two, building the programs, getting everything ready to launch for trade shows, PR, direct response, e-marketing, doing it all simultaneously. And then phase three, launching the media analyst, and throughout the entire process, looking at how you're doing, measuring it, the outcomes, and evaluating how you can do it better. And that's the marketing imperative. So now I'll turn it over to Maribel for some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Michael.